Deductive reasoning is inferring the best conclusions from the data in hand. Best usually meaning the most likely and the most probable. It's different from more classic forms of logic such as deduction and induction because it's a lot more open-ended. It also involves working on the fly because it's rare that in the real world you would get all of the data you need for your hypothesis right in the beginning, so you have to integrate it as it comes along. The research I've done this semester has worked towards building a standalone measure of abductive reasoning. Participants in our experiment performed several tests of cognitive measures, such as working memory and divergent thinking, in addition to 2 versions of our abductive reasoning test, the medical diagnosis scenario and the health benefits of wine scenario. In our test, participants were given information about one of those scenarios and asked to generate possible explanations for them. Afterward, they had to explain why they chose that explanation and then back it up with evidence from the data and knowledge from the real world. After collecting the data, we had to figure out a classification scheme that every explanation could fit in. So we did this by creating a few overarching categories that we called the superordinates that held really general ideas. And these were made up by the subordinate categories, which were much more specific. So for example, in the medical diagnosis category, there was a superordinate category called virus. And it had the subordinates flu, common cold, and mononucleosis. In the end, we had 6 superordinate categories for the medical diagnosis scenario and 11 for the wine. Each one had varying numbers of subordinates. Using these, we had to assign every explanation to one of the categories. This was done by myself and another research assistant. To ensure reliability, we did the first couple together, and we wound up agreeing on 90% of them. So then we did the rest, and in the end we randomly selected 20, and we checked our agreement, which was still 85%. We then had to create normative rating systems for the responses. This would allow us to measure how well people generated hypotheses without regard to how well they were able to evaluate them, which just gave us another level of measurement. So each category was given a number on a scale from 0 to 5. 0 meant that it was unrelated or unintelligible because of some of the corrupted data we had. These were treated as missing because we didn't want to penalize anyone who had an unrelated but well-reasoned response. 1 meant that it was not related to the explanation at all, somewhat counterintuitive even. 5 meant that the explanation was a near-perfect fit to the scenario. So finally we were able to run analysis on the data. We found that our normative ratings correlated significantly with measures of working memory and divergent thinking. Those for the wine scenario also predicted by participant scores on a measure of vocabulary. So there's still a lot of work to be done on this project, but the results we have thus far are really encouraging, and we believe that it will lead we'll be able to finish our tests and get it out to the community at large.